Vivek Chudamani, presented by Svayam Prakash Sharma. Part 3. Part 3 consists of verses 57 to 86, in which the following are discussed: knowledge of the self or the Atma, liberation possible only through direct experience, the gross or the physical body, the sense objects are a trap that bind a person, man's fascination with the body, and the pitfalls of such fascination. Vivek Chudamani. The Guru continues with his explanation. He says, the beauty of the musical instrument, the veena, and the proficiency of the person who plays on its chords both serve only to provide pleasure and to entertain the audience that listens. Neither the veena nor the person who plays on it, neither of them can ever confer sovereignty to the people. Their only purpose is to entertain and please. Loud speech in a constant flow of words, proficiency in expounding and commenting on the scriptures, and learning, all these serve only to bring a little joy and material satisfaction to the scholar. But none of them, either on their own or even all put together, are sufficient to liberate a person completely. Without knowing the supreme reality, the study of the scriptures is futile. It is of no use whatsoever. And once the supreme reality is known, then again the study of the scriptures is futile. Because then, since the supreme reality is known, there is then no need to study the scriptures. The large number of commentaries that have been written on the philosophies, in fact, constitute a thick jungle. Going through those commentaries is like trying to find one's way in a dense forest, where a roving mind could very easily get lost in its own delusions. All seekers of Brahm should therefore, if they are to be liberated, personally experience the real nature of the self or the Atma through right efforts. For the person who has been bitten by the deadly cobra of ignorance, the only remedy is knowledge of Brahm. Of what use are the Vedas and other scriptures, the mantras and medicines, to such a victim of the deadly poison of ignorance? They are of no use whatsoever. A disease is never cured by just repeating the name of the medicine instead of taking it. To cure the disease, the medicine has to be eaten. Similarly, by just uttering the word Brahm, without directly realizing Brahm, no one can be liberated. If a person wants to be liberated, then he must himself directly experience Brahm or the Atma. Merely repeating the word Brahm or the Atma will never liberate him. Without achieving the disappearance of the entire pluralistic world, and without realizing the true nature of the self, how can a person achieve complete liberation? By the mere repetition of the word Brahm. Therefore, unless a person can make the entire pluralistic world disappear, and unless he realizes the true nature of the self or the Atma, by merely repeating the word Brahm, a person can never achieve liberation. This will only be a wasted effort on his part. If a person wants to become an emperor, Then, first of all, he must eliminate all his enemies. And then he must bring the entire land of the kingdom under his control. He cannot become an emperor merely by saying, I am an emperor again and again. To become an emperor, he must take the appropriate actions. Similarly, a treasure that is hidden deep below under the earth can only be found when the exact location of the treasure is known, and when excavations etc. are carried out and earth, stones etc. that are hiding the treasure are removed. The treasure can never be discovered by just calling out its name. In the same way, the pure truth of the self or the Atma, which is hidden beneath the delusion and the effects of delusion on a person, that pure truth can only be attained through the instructions of one who himself is a knower of Brahm, followed by reflection, followed by meditation, etc. The truth of the self can never emerge and manifest itself as a result of repeated and perverted arguments. Therefore, the intelligent seeker should, as in the case of illness, etc., strive hard with all the proper means that are at his disposal to be free from the bondage of births and deaths. Now I will come to some of the questions that you have raised. They are indeed excellent questions, and they are all accepted by those who are well versed in the scriptures. They are aphoristic in that they express general truths. They are full of hidden meaning, and as such, they are fit to be known by all seekers. Listen very carefully and with full attention to what I shall tell you now, O learned one, listening to which you will immediately gain a thorough knowledge of the liberator that will liberate you from the bondage of the sansar, from the bondage of worldly life. For a person to attain liberation, he must, first of all, have extreme detachment from all the finite objects that give him sensual satisfaction. Once he has this attachment, then he should have calmness, he should have calmness, he should have self-control, he should have fortitude and patience, and he should have a complete renunciation of all selfish actions. He must completely renounce all selfish actions. Next comes listening or learning. He must listening or hearing. He must listen very carefully and attentively to what is being told. After listening comes reflection. Having listened, he must reflect deeply on what he has heard. And last but not least comes the long, constant and continuous meditation on the truth for the seeker of liberation. Ultimately, sincerely following all these steps, the learned one attains the supreme nirvikalp state and realizes the bliss of nirvana in this very life itself. Now I will describe in detail the discrimination, the difference between the self or the Atma and the not self or the non-Atma, between what is the Atma and what is not the Atma. Listen to it carefully and receive it well in your mind. Know that the body is composed of 7 ingredients, which are marrow, bones, fat, flesh, blood, dermis and epidermis. It consists of the following parts: legs, thighs, feet, chest, arms, back and head. It is this body that is expressed in the terms of I and mine. that is the seat of all delusions. Reputed sages call this the gross or the physical body. Sky, air, fire, water, and earth are the subtle elements of this body. When these subtle elements unite with parts of one another, they become gross or physical. And then they become the cause of the physical body. The subtle essence of these subtle elements constitutes the sense objects that are 5 in number, such as sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. And it is these 5 that contribute to the enjoyment of what is called the experience of the individual ego. People who are thoughtless, those people are bound to these sense objects by their strong ropes of attachment, ropes that are very difficult to cut off. Such people come and go. They go up and down. They are carried by the compelling forces of the reactions of their own past actions. The deer, the elephant, the moth, the fish, and the honeybee, these 5 are destroyed. They are trapped because they are slaves of one or the other of the senses of sight, of sound, of smell, of taste, or of touch. They are destroyed because of their own attachment to one or the other of these senses. Imagine the condition of the person who is attached to all the 5 senses. Know this for sure, that the sense objects are even more poisonous in their tragic effects than the poison of a cobra. Poison is fatal only to the person who ingests it, only to the person who takes it in. But the sense objects even kill the person who does not take it in, but who just looks at them from a distance with his eyes only. Such is the deadly power of the senses. The person who has liberated himself from the terrible bonds of his desires for sense objects, which indeed are very difficult to renounce and get rid of, he alone is fit for liberation, none else. Not even if a person is well versed in all the scriptures and in all the schools of philosophy. Those persons who have no true dispassion, who have no true detachment, but put on a show of dispassion, of detachment, who have only apparent dispassion. When such persons try to cross the ocean of worldly existence, then they are invariably caught by their throats by the shark of desire, who then violently drags them along and drowns them in the middle of that very ocean. The person who, with the sword of genuine and mature dispassion, has destroyed the shark that goes by the name of sense objects, he crosses the ocean of worldly life, worldly finite existence. He crosses the ocean of the sansar without any obstruction whatsoever. Know for sure that mortality soon overtakes the man who foolishly walks on the dangerous and treacherous path of sense pleasures. On the other hand, the person who sticks to the path of divinity according to the scriptures and according to the instructions of well-meaning and stable gurus, who constantly walk on the path of the divine, helped along by his own reasoning faculty, he certainly reaches his goal. Know for certain that this is true. So, if you do indeed have a craving for liberation, then you must avoid the sense objects from a distance. Stay far away from them. Just as you would avoid all things that are poisonous, in the same way and with respectful reverence, you should then duly cultivate the nectar-like virtues of contentment, of forgiveness, of straightforwardness, of calmness, and of self-control. Know that this body that you have got, this body is essentially an instrument for realizing the Supreme Self or the Param Atma. The person who does not constantly use his body for liberating himself from the bondage that is born of beginningless ignorance, but who instead keeps on nourishing it, he is only destroying himself. The person who seeks to rediscover the self, to rediscover the Atma, by devoting himself to the care of the body, he is like one who tries to cross a river, holding on to a shark which he mistakes for a log of wood. For anyone who seeks liberation, infatuation with the body, etc., is only a tragic death. On the other hand, the person who has totally conquered this infatuation, who has totally conquered this attachment, he definitely deserves the state of liberation. Therefore, conquer the great infatuation that you have for your body, that you have for your wife, that you have for your children and the like. It is by conquering these that the great sages reach the supreme state of Lord Vishnu. Yes, it is by conquering these that the great sages reach the supreme state of Lord Vishnu. This concludes part 3 of Vivek Chudamani, consisting of verses 57 to 86. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om.